Hey everybody, wanted to talk a little bit about the 2-1 buy down, how that works, how it stacks up against a permanent rate buy down. We're seeing a lot of price reductions, but we're also seeing situations where instead of a price reduction, sellers are giving a credit to the buyer, which is being used to either temporarily buy the rate down or permanently buy the rate down. And that's helping mitigate just a little bit of the pain right now with these higher interest rates. So let me share my screen and we'll dive right into this. All right, so let's dive into the numbers and see how this pencils out. So I'm setting this up with a just kind of a generic scenario would be a $500,000 sales price with a 20% down payment. So we're just going to assume this is a conventional home loan, 20% down. And we're going to put this 6.99% in as sort of the starting rate. So this is where rates are at currently. These are average interest rates kind of across the board. As of yesterday's close, you can see that 30-year conforming rate is, just a little bit above 7%. That's a one-year chart of where things were and where things have gone. You can see that a year ago we were at 3.2%, and we are all the way up to 7.1%. So I want to come back to this in a second and talk about why that might be important. And this first column here, this is going to be where we're going to show the potential buyer what it would look like if there was no sales price reduction and there was no credit, just to kind of give them sort of a baseline of where things would be. So rate would be, we're going to say 6.99%, and the total payment's going to be somewhere around $32.79 per month. This does include the estimated taxes and insurance as well. So that's going to be kind of our starting point. And you can see that we need to come 115,000 cash out of pocket. Okay, so we have that. Let's focus on this column, which is going to be, what if they didn't want to take a rate buy down, but instead want to just do a price reduction? So we're just going to do a $10,000 price reduction. So instead of buying the home for $500,000, they're going to buy the home for $490,000. They're going to have the same interest rate at 6.99%. And their payment's going to go down a little bit because they're not borrowing quite as much, but payment's going to go down to 32. We'll call it 3216, not exactly life-changing, but they are buying the house for $10,000 less, so there is some benefit there. And you can see their cash to close went down a little bit because there's a little bit less down payment involved. But this is where I think we're able to kind of do some damage to the interest rate and get people into a home on a more comfortable payment. And this is what the 2-1 buy down would how it would pencil out. So that 6.99 rate would be 4.99 the first year, and that payment would go down to all the way to $27.66 per month. So a massive improvement from that $32.79. And then the second year, 5.99%, the payment would be $3,016 per month, and they would have those lower payments. If they're still in that loan 24 months later, it would revert back to the 6.99. Their payment would be the $32.79. Now, the one thing I don't have in here is I don't have the permanent rate buy down. However, I did create a sheet here that just kind of goes over the numbers. So this is how this 2-1 buy down would pencil out. And we're going to assume that a year later, interest rates come down, right? Because we've been on this enormous increase for a year. And I do think that if inflation gets under control, I think we will see some relief in interest rates. There's no guarantee of this, and we always tell the buyers that there's no guarantee. But I think it's something to consider down the road that potentially a refinance could happen there. So if the buyer chose a 2-1 buy down, the numbers are here, which we just went over. The total cost of the buy down is going to be $93.24, and we're going to assume that the seller is paying, let's say the seller is doing a $10,000 credit. That would take care of that cost of the buy down. Let's say a year later they refinance. Okay, so the way the numbers would work is that 3156 of the 9324 would be left over in that buy down account. That 3156 would be applied towards a principal reduction on the refinance. So what I love about this is that the buyers don't give up any of that seller credit whatsoever. They're going to put that money in their pocket one way or another, whether it's through the 2-1 buy down, through the lower payments, or if they get a portion of it credited back when they do a refinance. So I love the fact that they get to keep every dollar of the seller credit. Let's look at permanent rate buy down. So The math on this was somewhere around that we get the rate to about 6.25%, which is going to lower their payment $197 a month, which is great. But look at the cost of that. It's going to be around $14,000. So let's say the seller's only giving $10,000. Buyer's going to have to come out of pocket a bit more, another $4,000. The benefit, though, is that this 6.25 is going to be a permanent rate buy down. So if they're in that loan for 10, 15, 20 years, great. They're going to come out ahead compared to the temporary rate buy down. But that's if they're in the loan that long of a term. Look what happens if they refinance a year later out of this 6.25. Let's say rates drop to 5.5 or 5.25, and we're able to refinance them. They would have saved only $2,362 in that first year, even though they spent $14,000. So the remainder, that $11,638, that doesn't get recouped. That actually goes back to the bank or the investor on the loan, and it would actually take approximately 6 years to recoup the entire cost of that permanent rate buy down. So what I don't love about the permanent rate buy down is that's a one-time charge of $14,000. The buyer cannot recoup it. It is a tax deduction. That is one benefit. But this is going to be more for somebody if it's a buyer just believes, hey, I think interest rates are going to keep going up. We're going to hit 10, 12, 13% interest rates. This would be the right choice for them because that's what they're comfortable with. But I do think that the 2-1 buy down is a lot more popular for a number of reasons. And this is how the program works. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me, 916-223-1520. Take care.